Thanks, everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri. Our next guest is one of my favorite comedians. It's hard to articulate how much joy this guy has brought me over the course of my life. Whether it's his classic stand-up album, Shut Up, You Fucking Baby, his absolutely classic sketch comedy show, Mr. Show with Bob and David, or the incredibly poor decisions of Todd and Margaret, or Arrested Development, or the fantastic new comedy special he's here to promote, Oh, Come On, which is getting a 10-city theatrical run while also simultaneously being available on all platforms where you view things. Let's take a look at a clip of David Cross's Oh, Come On.
One thing that my wife for years tried to get us to do, for years, was to go for a couples colonic. Yeah. In her defense, she was saying like, oh, it'll be fun, it'll be funny, you'll get a bit out of it. You go in, and it's very soft, and it's respectful, and there's like low lighting, like amber lighting, and it's very quiet, you know, and there's like an older hippie woman behind the desk, and she's got really long hair, too long, the hair is too long. It's just cut that much off, please. What? No one, it's making everyone nervous. No one needs hair this long. It's for safety's sake, ma'am. Please just cut this much. And then it's, you know, a burbling brook and a bonsai tree, and then a CD is playing softly in the background. You know, it's nature sounds, just, you know, chimes. Ding doo doo ding 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 doo doo ding doo doo ding 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 ding, and a wolf howl. And vaguely Native American sounds like, you know, but all at once, you know, and I can't do it all at once. I'm not Michael Winslow, but, you know, you get the idea. Get the idea. So that's playing. And then, so we go and we get our forms and fill them out and whatever, and turn them in. And then after a minute or two, this tall, very severe looking kind of Germanic woman comes out, really stern. She comes out and she goes, Amba Tamblin. And then next to her is a very short Vietnamese woman who says, David Croft. And so we walk up and we go our separate ways. My wife gets taken down the hallway this way, I get taken down there, and so I'm like, I knew it! I knew this wasn't a couples thing. I knew we were gonna lay there, and, you know, like minor victory, tiny victory, and it turns out to be an extremely minor victory, because my laughter starts receding as I'm like, I knew it. Wait, what's happening? Where am I going? What's going to happen to me? Where am I? What's this room?
Everybody, please welcome the great David Cross.
Thank you. Hello.
Thank you so much for being here. I can't say it enough. I'm a huge fan of your work. You know, Mr. Show with Bob and David, I'm pretty sure got me through a lot of high school and college. It was such a meaningful show for so many.
It was your weed and alcohol.
Well, there was that involved with it as well. But yeah, it was part of it, I guess you could say. Let's talk about Asheville. Why Asheville for your special?
Well, that was just a happy coincidence. I always like to tape the special halfway through the tour, you know, roughly halfway through the tour, because the act is always evolving. I kind of riff a lot on stage, and there's a whole thing in there that was just riff that became part of the subsequent sets. But
The Grateful Dead?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So usually, you know, the set's pretty tight, and I feel good about it. And then the CD, which I always put a CD out with that, is from one of the last shows on the tour, because the sets evolved even more. So Asheville was right. It had all the requirements. It was right in the middle. I could do 2 shows that night. It was in a music club, which is kind of I'm very comfortable with, and it's just a different feeling and a different show, and
as opposed to like an actual comedy club or a theater?
A theater, yeah. I mean, the theater shows are great, but there's just, I mean, there's an intimacy there. You know, I'm right on top of people, and the club is great. Asheville is great. Excuse me, and
Sorry to interrupt, but does your comfort with performing in music venues come from the fact that I think in the late '90s, early 2000s, it was really you and a sort of handful of comedians that were doing a lot of opening for bands or actually touring with bands?
Yeah, and I on the tour that ended up being producing "Shut Up You Fucking Baby" was I had a band opening for me, and it was at a music club. So the band would play, and I'd go, and it was just really cool, with very little breakdown because I go up, I don't need any sound check or something. So the band plays, everybody's pumped. I go up, I do, back then I was doing like anywhere from 2 to 3 hours. It was ridiculous, but
You were doing 2 to 3 hour sets. That's right, because I remember the album was a double album.
yeah, it was very self-indulgent. it was a cool thing to do. I'm glad I did it, but I just don't work that way anymore. And I was drinking a lot, before the show, during the show, and 2 to 3 hours. You're going through, over half a case of beer, and I would just do the show until I had to take a piss, and it was just different. It was looser, and I liked it. They were fun, but I have a different approach, and also moving it to bigger theaters. You just have a different presentation. You have to. So that was nice. That was just a happy coincidence, and Asheville kind of ticked off all the boxes. And again, it's a great town. I don't know if you've ever been there, but Asheville.
I haven't actually.
It's great. It's really cool. And so yeah. That's what.
Shut Up You Fucking Baby. One of the things that I loved about it, I remember when it came out, was that it was one of the few things that felt directly critical of the Bush administration and representative of a certain cynicism about American politics and American media that so much of us were feeling in that moment. And we're now in the midst of the Trump administration, and it seems that.
Well, wait till you get to the end of the special. There's a bit of catharsis for everybody in there.
There's a bit of catharsis, but I wonder, I find you a bit more hopeful in a way, or at the very least, I don't know. I don't want to say that, maybe not hopeful.
Well, that's not
but
negative. And maybe I am. I hope I am. I'm going to assume that has something to do with having a kid. I'm a new dad, which is part of the topic of the special, and something that I've never had in any of my specials or sets before, which is a kind of a thread, an idea that threads throughout the entirety of the set, which you kind of keep coming back to the fact that I'm looking at this stuff, and there's an urgency to the things I'm talking about that I never had before. It's very easy to go, this is bullshit, and kind of move on and dismiss it. But now I have, not even just in the set, just in life. But now I see it differently because and again, I address a lot of that in the special. I'm bringing up a kid, and how much because I am a cynical person. And
am I.
All right. I'll see you at the meeting. And how much
what do we do at that meeting?
It's just it's just a lot of Frogurt, and Irish car bombs, and then so what truth do I tell her, and what do I withhold from her? How much do I protect her, and am I being overprotective by not telling her certain truths that she needs to know, and so that is a new filter through which I see everything.
I'm curious how you feel.
She will not see the special until she's out of college. She's not to see this.
I'm wondering, Trump, and I don't want to go too far into this, but I mean, just listening to the both of them back to back, which I did, both Shut Up You Fucking Baby and with Oh Come On, there is this cynicism about American institutions during the Bush years that it felt kind of safe to have. And now with Trump, there is this sort of belief in American institutions that we have to have in the hope that they will sort of protect us and at the very least, at the end of the day, hold this Keystone Cop shitbag together so that, the earth doesn't melt or something, which is what's going to happen.
Well, as you said, the important key word is have to have it. You have to have that. And perhaps that's why I am more hopeful, because you've reached the nadir of this thing, and not the Ralph Nader, the Nadir, but the point where you are forced to have some hope.
Yeah.
If you're going to not kill yourself or move, probably move first. Move's probably a better thing than killing yourself.
Give Iceland a shot or something.
But yeah, you have to have hope. And it's a strange place to find oneself. If you're predisposed to being cynical, and I'm cynical. And again, this is all stuff in this, but I'm cynical because I know it's not like I've chosen to be cynical. I know the truths. I know these things. I know that there's a direct line from Trump to Karl Rove and George Bush and the Republicans that sent him there. Right? There's a direct line. It's not like this, like, how did this happen? Oh, it's because of social media, or I mean, it's ridiculous. There's a direct line to that. What they've done, what they've been doing.
It's always a weird thing when someone calls you cynical and like it's a bad thing because you're like, you're the crazy one for not being cynical. I don't understand why you're addressing me this way. Yeah. You talk about having a child and there is a sense of hope, but you do this wonderful thing where you sort of any cliche that a person would use to talk about having a child and how it's changed them, you undercut it with a joke, but then you punctuate the whole special. And I don't hope this isn't spoiling anything, but you punctuate the whole special with like really sentimental, wonderful footage of your family with "What a Time to Be Alive" by Superchunk, which is clearly
that was all intentional. That was all, and I don't know if you noticed because I don't know if it's understood, but my intro. So the closing credits music, which goes into what you're talking about, is the song "What a Time to Be Alive" by Superchunk, and talking directly about living in Trump's America, and
but also having a child as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, specifically, but so the end of that has you hear Will Arnett's voice introducing me, and that was the intro to the show. So as the credits are kind of fading, you hear the beginning, because we come in to the special. I've already been on stage for 7 minutes at that point. And we fade up on it. I'm already talking, and then there's a thing about, I'm just sticking around, whatever, and then I get into the first joke. And so that it all loops around on itself. So by the time you get to the end of that, that's Will introducing me in that show, and I come out and I'm saying, "Hey, Asheville, what's going on?" So I thought that was pretty cool.
The cyclical kind of thing.
That you're coming into, because it ends with these kind of sweet visuals, and it's super smart and clever and creative, and I think a lot of people won't get it.
I was thinking Memento when I was watching. It's very cool, very cool.
Yeah.
But it is more sentimental than I think we've ever seen you be as an artist.
I've got a innocent little girl who doesn't. Again, these are all little things that are brought up, throughout the special, and kind of whether they're specifically verbalized or not, they kind of thread their way through.
So Superchunk, a band that you've been affiliated with or friends with since your early days in the 90s.
Yeah.
I don't remember if it's them or is it Yola Tango that you directed a music video for? Was it?
No, I directed 10 a.m. Automatic for the Black Keys.
For the Black Keys.
Yeah,
I was you directed a music. Oh,
no, I was in. Both Bob and I were in a Yola Tango video, and I was in Watery Hands.
That's what it was. Excuse me. Sorry. For some reason I had thought that you directed that as well.
No.
So you've been close with this band for a while. Do you find yourself, outside of just the fact that you have a young child, but reflective on your career and on your life over the last 25, 30 years working?
I'm gonna put that off for another 10 years before I get into the misty-eyed
memoir
reflections of opportunities missed, and
Life in the Lights.
I mean, I guess every time you do something, now this is a thing that's part of the, of my body of work as it grows. I guess that I've never really sat down and thought, I started here, now I'm here. I'm quite happy with most of the stuff I've done. But yeah, I haven't really.
Can I ask what you're unhappy with?
Oh, some things that just didn't turn out. Like, the movie Run Ronnie Run is still a source point for a bunch of folks who worked on it.
Which is so strange because for me that was another thing that when I discovered it, we just thought it was the funniest thing in the world.
People love it,
and then we read that you guys hated it, and we were like, oh.
No, we didn't. We hated it. We didn't hate it. It's very frustrating because we know how good it could have been, and we were kind of kicked out of editing, and we weren't allowed to be a part of that process, and we had very strong feelings about these things, and it was decided. It's taken away from us basically, and decided that it was going to be more of a kind of a traditional studio film where the lovable loser boy meets girl, whatever, and has this journey. And
taken away from your was it taken away from your director too? Because I know your director.
No.
Oh wow.
No.
Wow.
No,
that's got to be that's got to be a sore thing.
He was one of the taker-awayers,
he had been on the show for a while.
Yeah,
right?
And he's a fantastic director, extremely talented. And he was integral to Mr. Show. I mean, part of the success was his talent and what he was able to do with very little money. But yeah, I mean, we've all talked about it before, but. Yeah, it was a disappointing to it. I mean, I didn't mean to go off track and talk about that, but
is that something after an experience like that? Did you have a realization or any sort of feeling like I'll never let anything like that happen with I will never get involved in something where that could happen?
I absolutely never again. To be, and I know I speak for Bob as well, and it's something we've talked about, over the years, either with each other or in situations like this. But first of all, there's no reason to. And we were naive, and we were manipulated, and we were lied to, and we're both, Bob and I are older and wiser, and have been in this business for a long time now, and that would never happen again.
What was it like? This is tangential, excuse me, but what was it like when you and Bob were in the post together? Because I never thought, as like a 19-year-old getting high and watching Mr. Show, that I would see David Cross and Bob Odenkirk in a Steven Spielberg movie about Watergate.
Well, as a 30-year-old getting high and making Mr. Show, I never thought I'd be in a Spielberg film.
But I was so excited when I was watching it, I have to say. I felt like it was strange.
It was crazy. It was we were both hired. Spielberg signed off on us. The casting director was, the person responsible for putting it together, going, I think he'd be great, and I think he'd be great for this. And also you have the benefit of you're playing real people, so there was a physical resemblance for me to the guy I was playing, and Bob as well to his guy. So it made sense. We knew that Steven didn't know about Mr. Show, and we were told expressly, don't tell him. There's no reason to tell him. Don't tell him.
Really?
So, yeah. And I think the fears were a little unfounded because when at the very end, when we talked about it, we were like, did you know this? And he didn't care, at all. It really was. He certainly didn't show it. But the first...
no, I didn't know.
No, and I don't think it's part of his world. And also... Yeah. We were this little watch. I mean, we're culty now, but I don't think that niche really matters to him. And he's like, well, I'm that. Yeah, great. No, don't worry about it. This movie's bigger than that.
Right.
But the first 3 days of shooting were. All in a lot of ensemble stuff in the big newsroom, and
where every face was like, oh my God, they got that person too.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
And that was the first 3 days of shooting. So the first 3 scenes that Bob and I are in together. Sometimes there's 2 other people, sometimes there's 5 other people, but they were always kind of small little scenes and or groups rather. Literally, so because he shot on film and not digitally, and there's so much choreography to the camera and placement and lighting and actors hitting their mark. So you'd have a lot of rehearsal for this scene, and then you'd shoot it once or twice. And
So you'd have this rehearsal, and I think just intuitively, Bob and I stayed apart from each other in that scene. So if we're in Tom Hanks's office, right? Bob would sit on the couch. I'd be, next to the bookcase, and people would place themselves there. You'd rehearse it, and then Steve would come over. This happened the first 3 scenes that you see Bob and I in together. Steve would go, "Okay, that was great. Yeah, Pat, why don't you go around behind Tom's shoulder there, come in behind the chair. Bob, why don't you go stand next to David?" The first 3 times. So it almost looks intentional, you know.
And he didn't know. I mean, do you think
No
that?
idea.
Why did you think that was happening? Did you think it was
He
like?
probably could sense that we were secretly lovers for a long time, and we had a relationship. And I don't know. It just sort of worked out.
Now you've directed a lot. Now you made a small film called Hits. You just wrote and directed an entire series in the UK called Bliss. When you were on the set with someone like Spielberg, were you watching him? Were you curious?
No,
how he
I was going,
directs?
dude, you don't want to. I mean, who am I to say? But I don't know if you want to do it that way. What I would do is, yeah, no, I mean, you just shut up and observe, and it was truly one of the greatest experiences I have ever had. I will never forget it. It was just a treat on so many levels and an honor, but also to be able to watch him work and the shorthand he has with his crew, and they've worked together on a dozen, if not more, things, and they just have the shorthand that works. And he's also, and this is so important, and people don't put enough importance on this. He runs a very fun set, a good set. There's no yelling, there's no screaming, there's no, if you're upset, you handle it a certain way away from everybody else. I mean, it's just a tension-free set, and it's so important, and he knows that. I mean, there's no excuse to be an asshole. There's just none. And, and there were times he was upset with something, but he's consummate professional, and then when we'd have these long down times, because again it was shot on film, so an hour of relighting and stuff, and we would sit. There'd be like 5 of us, 6 of us, and we just ask him questions, and he would open up and just talk about stories from Jaws and shooting. It was just the greatest. You can't imagine. I'm like the little boy inside of me is all excited right now just retelling you that. It was great.
In Oh Come On, you talk a lot about, when we saw the clip where you're talking about getting a colonic with Amber
Nice
Campbell
edit there.
and your wife.
You cut out about 3 minutes from that, from the introduction of it to the being in the Gentle Wellness Center.
And I'm curious, I've seen a lot of comedians. I think oftentimes it happens with young comedians who hit a level of fame really fast, and all of a sudden the stand-up specials become very much about like their personal life in regards to fame. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. And I'm wondering, when you got into a relationship with someone who was sort of equally famous as you and is making headlines, if you worried about how you would craft that material around it without ever
Talking about Bob.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But without ever sounding sort of too navel-gazy or self-indulgent, which I don't think you do, but I'm wondering if you were ever worried about that.
Not really. As far as my wife is concerned, I mean, she's been in this business as a, per capita longer than I have. I was just kind of a loser for a long, long time, like affable, fun guy, but I wasn't driven. I wasn't. I was very happy just to kind of drink and go do shows and live my life. I wasn't. I didn't have the drive that a lot of other people have, and that my wife has. And
wait, sorry, I don't. But I remember reading an interview with Bob where he was talking about you, and he said that David likes to present himself as anarchic and crazy and like doesn't give a shit. But left to his druthers, he will take control of any situation and master it and become the director if need be.
Well, that's a very nice thing to say, and that is true now. But it wasn't. It took me a while to get to that point. And Bob was one of those guys who I learned from, who was like that. And he's just intuitively, I mean, you get the sense he was like that as a child, and I mean in the womb. and it took me a while. I think I'm that person now, but I wasn't for a long time. And my wife is of that other, she's very driven. She's very prolific, and then when all the stuff she does, and then you add that she's a co-founding member of Time's Up, and the stuff that she's dealt with that, just on top of all that, and being a mother, I don't, that's a different level, and I don't think I could do what she does, but but that's really not answering your question. It hasn't, I don't think, maybe it has subconsciously, but it hasn't I haven't changed my approach or anything. I don't think it's altered anything.
Do you ever worry, because she is co-founder of Time's Up, she's a very vocal, prominent feminist, which is amazing. Do you ever worry that your sort of cynical sense of humor on stage will be misconstrued or taken out of context to undercut that in any way?
Yeah, for sure. I've felt,
Which is crazy, because if anyone knows your work and has listened to your work, you are a staunch feminist as well,
Well, that's the key. It's the accusations that I've gotten about, based on something that I said 12 years ago or whatever, or whatever thing that's out there. It's only the people who don't know me, have never met me, who don't know me, that, and it's an easy thing to do. I'm sure I'm guilty of it. You make a judgment, you see something on Twitter, and you're like, fuck that guy. But that doesn't come from anybody who has spent any time with me. So luckily, my wife knows me very well. There's a reason we're together.
She has a sense of humor.
Yeah, and she knows who I am, and she knows... and she's very quick to say, like, that's not going to sound good. I know what you mean, but that's not a good look or whatever.
I imagine that usually has to do with tweeting.
Oh yeah, she's been.
That's
and I'm trying.
I do that too.
I'm a lot better now at staying off Twitter, and I need to just lose it. I really do. And I talk about that in the special. But it's bad. It's just
demonic
bad.
time suck.
But even more than that, it's just it brings out the worst in a human being's in their traits, and it's thoughtless. There's so little thought to it, and people presume they're having a dialogue. You're not having a dialogue on Twitter. It's ridiculous, and it's not. It's just thoughtless. It's not, meaning there's an absence of thought. It's not thoughtful. It's not a smart approach to anything. And we all know how we can easily be manipulated by misinformation or by omitting some information. You don't have a clear picture of things, and for those reasons, I've just got to get off it. It's I've have a lot of things that I enjoy that could be literally physically addicting, but nothing has been more addicting than social media. And for some reason, I just can't. I say I'm going to stop, but well, fuck it. There's nothing to do, and I just got to quit it.
I find anytime I'm on Twitter too long or I'm getting engaged, the one way to pull myself out is to look at a news headline, a tragic news headline, and the comments underneath it, and then it's like, why would I ever spend time with these awful people? Because it'll be something that is objectively tragic.
Yes.
And a comment will be like, first.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck are you doing? Yeah. Why do you need that?
And now, now that I have a daughter, I found myself on too many occasions, she's watching something, or and I'm having tea. It's, in the morning, she's watching, Wheels on the Bus for the 900th time. And can I say that I woke up? I just came in last night from LA. I did 2 days of press in LA and went out Monday night, overnight, did 2 days of press, came back last night. The night when I woke up to come home, I'm in LA in a hotel bed, and I woke up and instantly, the wheels on the bus go round. And you're like, fuck. She's not even here. Anyway, but I found myself, she's watching, and then I just sort of, my phone's there, and I'm like, and what am I doing? I've got a daughter, who's right there. I know she's engaged in this, insipid cartoon, but I should be at least next to her, looking at the cartoon. It's just one more reason, if not the most important reason, to just ditch it forever.
David, I'm getting the rap sign. But I love your work so much. Thank you so much for coming on.
Are we supposed to freestyle, or
I thought that you were.
You were getting what is the rap sign?
Oh.
What is, I don't know. I don't know.
We have a beatboxer. We're going to bring him out. You have a whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Oh Come On is hitting 10 cities, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it is available on iTunes, on VOD. What is the date of release that it'll be on
I
everything?
think is today Friday?
Today is Friday.
Today. Yeah, today. It's right now.
It's available today.
Right this very minute.
David Cross, everybody. Let's hear it.
Thank you.